Shalom, welcome to Tactically Torah. I am Heath Hayes, and I want to ask, what is your status? What is your status with the Most High? Have you been worshiping Him? Have you been doing the things that you know you're supposed to be doing? Now I understand the idea of Romans chapter 7. We all get that. The things that I desire to do, I do not do, but the things that wrestle inside me and come out of my flesh, the things that my flesh desires to do, I end up doing, but not the things of the Scripture. Now, the context there is he's wrestling within the idea of keeping and obeying the laws and commands of the Most High, aka the Torah, versus acting out with the what is called or dictated by Paul as being the law of the flesh, right? The Torah is not the law of the flesh. The Torah is the word of the Most High living God. But anyways, how often does that flesh, the law of the flesh, overtake your being to where you just, no matter how many times you tell yourself, no matter how much you speak and act and think and say, I need to read the Word, I need to get on my face and worship the Most High, I need to put on this music, I need to do this, I need to do that, simply just for relationship maintenance purposes. What's your status? I'm talking to myself too. See, because it's easy to get distracted by the woes of the world. I'm there. I've been there for a while. I've been distracted. But at the same time, what a blessing it is to be able to keep your eyes focused on the Most High. That's what Peter did. Or rather, that's what Peter did not do. He took his eyes off Yeshua. Took his eyes off Jesus. You know, we're coming to the end of the age. We're nearly there. That's my humble opinion. You know, Scripture says to look to the sky for your redemption draws near. The kindred Redeemer, Yeshua, our Messiah, who is the one and only begotten Son of the Most High living God, draws near to you today. He's coming. He's coming again. See, He came once. He was crucified. He was beaten beyond recognition. His beard was pulled out of His face. So much so that whenever... Now, I want you to get this and understand this, that Yeshua, our Messiah, His beard was pulled from His face. He was marred beyond all recognition. To sit here and think and believe that an individual who had just gone through all of this, gone through all of this turmoil and tribulation in life, to be beaten and abused and chastised and freaking taking lashes that he is completely undeserving of. To take that beating, have thorns. Any of you ever seen a locust tree and the thorns that come out of that joker? Thorns like that long, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches long, made a crown of it, shoved into his head. Excruciating, painful. We can't imagine it. But He endured that for us. And to sit here and think that a man would go through that for you, for me. His beard was pulled from his face. It was completely unrecognizable. When He rose again, bore every scar. Even on his face, he was unrecognizable. I cannot state that enough. You have to understand that this Yeshua, Jesus, our Messiah, he is not some pretty boy. He is not what the Catholic Church wants to depict to you, or whatever this Christianized Western mindset wants to depict this picture of this beautiful man. Scripture says that he was not comely. He was not one that an individual would be drawn to him on a fleshly level. He was just an average man. And yet, what drew people to him was the Spirit of the Most High, the very fact that he operated in what the Father desired was spirit and in truth. He had the full endowment of the Spirit and operated in that love which draws men closer. See, I always think, I used to wonder, why is it that the disciples didn't recognize the man whenever they were out on the boat? Or whenever they see him, as he's on the beach, post-crucifixion, post-resurrection, they don't recognize him. The disciples, they're like, well, I guess we'll go back to fishing, right? The first thing Yeshua does is he goes, finds his boys. Ones who love him, the ones whom he loves, right? He says, even Peter, go tell the disciples, even Peter, the one who denied me. That's something. Even Peter, he calls him out by name, even though he denied me. Denied me 3 times, but go to him anyway. Tell him I have risen. Tell them the temple has been rebuilt. So they're out there fishing, and he reveals himself to them. He reveals himself to them. How about that? See, because they're questioning, they're like, who is this man? Something stood out to him. Then he broke the bread. And then they begin to realize, oh crap, it's Yeshua. It's Jesus. That's my buddy. He actually did rise again. I didn't recognize you. I thought you were just some old man. Some man who was marred beyond recognition. See, it's not so far-fetched now to think, why did he's called Doubting Thomas, right? Why did Thomas say that? Oh, I'll believe it when I can stick my fingers through the holes in the palm of his hand, or through his wrist, whatever you want to choose to believe where that piercing was. Regardless, it doesn't matter. When I see those piercings, I'll believe. Because standing before him that day was just some man. Face all scarred up. It was unrecognizable. I mean, maybe the eyes look familiar, but even then, he's got scars all over him. How can you recognize somebody who's been completely marred up? Then Yeshua, he immediately thinks, oh, really? Okay. Here's what you can't deny. I am He. I am your first love. That's what he's telling Thomas. It's like, hey, I love you. It's I really don't like the idea of, the stigma that is put on Thomas by the church. Oh, don't be a doubter like Thomas. But we all are. We all are. I would submit to you that if you're not even questioning your own faith, you're probably doing it wrong. You're probably doing it wrong. See, because the Father's calling you from one glory to the next glory. But we often get distracted by the woes of the world. We start looking at what's going on all around us, when in reality we should just be focused on the Father, focused on what He can provide, or even just focused on the fact that He is the one and only true living God. He is the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and Jacob. His name is Yahweh, whatever dialect you want to use. But He is that God. And He loves you. He loves you so much that He would send His one and only begotten Son, that whosoever would believe in Him, in Yeshua, in that Son, they would not perish but would have everlasting life, would have a chance at eternity. We have the opportunity to walk out our faith with fear and trembling. Why fear? Because He is a just and righteous God who is worthy of that fear. Not that He would just snap. Not that He would just be like, yep, I'm done with you. You're dead to me. It's not that. He's a gracious and merciful God. But I would submit to you that it is impossible to have that grace and that mercy without that justice and righteousness. How could there be a God without standards? How could there be a God without rules? This is how you are to act in my presence. This is how you are to treat one another in order to be worthy of my presence amongst yourselves. Love one another, right? The Most High loves you guys. He loves me. But what's your status? Check your status. He's worthy of worship. He's so worthy of worship that even if you didn't, the rocks and the trees would cry out, holy, holy, holy. The rocks. Think about that for a second. The rocks will cry out in worship. So if you haven't in a while, if you haven't already, or you think you need to, you got something going on in your life, why don't you just relinquish it to the Father? Put on some worship music. And I don't mean this me, feel good type music that the world calls worship today. No, I mean music that talks about the divinity and the righteousness and the glory of the Father, that talks about His holiness. How holy is He? He's worthy of that worship. Not what His holiness or His love or His kindness can do for me. It's not about Him being a way maker, because that is about what He can do for me. It's about worshiping the Father for who He is, simply because He is good and no other reason. All right, I'll leave you with that. Shalom. Go worship.